why does the UAE have a love affair with mercenaries? Imagine this. You're hired by a company that says you'll be working as a security guard in a glitzy mall somewhere in Abu Dhabi. But instead, you find yourself on the front lines in Libya. That's exactly what happened to 270 Sudanese workers who were duped by the Emirati security services company Black Shield.
Abu Dhabi has patched up an army of hired mercenaries from poor African countries.
When I asked why we were being trained on heavy weapons if we were supposed to work as security guards, they said we could be sent to Libya or Yemen to protect Emirati installations.
Human Rights Watch said that by deceiving the workers and putting them at risk in a war zone, the UAE could have violated international humanitarian law. And this fits a dangerous pattern. The UAE has made no secrets about its geopolitical ambitions across the Middle East and Africa. But how do you project power when you have a tiny native population? Well, having hundreds of billions in oil revenue helps, especially when it comes to hiring mercenaries to do the heavy lifting for you.
Let's have a look at the possible security risks that might motivate a small country like the UAE to look outside its borders for help. Internally, the most significant potential threat to its stability stems from the risk of unrest within the large expatriate community, while the external threat is limited to the long-standing dispute between the UAE and Iran.
The UAE's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Zayed has worked closely with people like former Palestinian security official Mohammed Dahlan. His close ties with private security companies helped MBZ acquire the services of hired guns. But one of the Crown Prince's most infamous deals came in 2011 when the UAE signed a $500 million contract with Reflex Response Security Consultants. The company was managed by Blackwater founder Eric Prince, who has faced a series of legal problems in the US.
It was one of the worst killings of innocent civilians by US contractors in Iraq, and a huge blow to America's efforts to stabilize the country. Security personnel working for the company then called Blackwater opened fire at Baghdad's Nisour Square, killing more than a dozen.
I disagree with the assertion that they acted like cowboys.
Now, a decade after working with a mercenary tycoon like Eric Prince, MBZ is taking action. Libya and Yemen have become the main testing grounds for the UAE's private armies. In Libya, UAE-based companies have used American, Australian, and European contractors. They fought alongside warlord Khalifa Haftar, who is battling the UN-backed government in Tripoli.
Mercenaries from several countries were tasked to prevent Turkish aid destined for the UN-recognized Libyan government in Tripoli from arriving.
And in Yemen, the situation is equally grim when it comes to the use of private security forces. According to the Rights Radar Foundation, the UAE has hired 30,000 mercenaries from 4 Latin American countries. The New York Times reported that 450 of them were deployed to Yemen in 2015. They fought with the Saudi-led coalition against Iranian-backed Houthi rebels. And in 2018, BuzzFeed News reported that the UAE also hired US mercenaries to assassinate Yemeni politicians. One target was the Al-Islah Party. Its leader, Ali Mayo, was put on a kill list for simply speaking out against the UAE's involvement in the war.
The former elite U.S. Special Operations fighters were paid to take part in missions to kill those deemed to be terrorists by the UAE. The United Arab Emirates worked with the U.S. company Spear Operations Group, founded by an Israeli-American man named Abraham Golan, who told BuzzFeed there was a targeted assassination program in Yemen. I was running it.
The UAE has relied on migrant workers for just about everything, from cleaning its bathrooms to teaching its students. Now, it has transferred the let others do it for us mentality onto the battlefield. And Washington has been one of the UAE's biggest supporters, especially when it comes to confronting Iran. The US Department of Defense has approved at least $27 billion in arms sales to the UAE since 2009. Tamara Witz, a former US State Department official, said of MBZ that we have created a little Frankenstein.
The U.S. will sell up to 50 F-35 jets to the UAE. That means that the UAE will be the first GCC nation and the first Arab country to have the stealth fighter in their arsenal.
So that's what happens when you have a tiny country with big ambitions sitting on a lot of cash. Countries like the UAE hire others to do the dirty work of their geopolitical goals.